Get ready for the show. Glad you're here today. We're going to talk today a little different than what we usually talk about. We usually talk about foods and nutrition and spines and nervous systems. We're going to talk about environmental chemicals that are really screwing you up. It's called endocrine disruptors. Now, if you're new to the show, the way we do is I talk for 24 minutes. You, whatever platform you're on, if any healthcare questions, type them in. Garrett and John will read me the questions at the 24-minute break. Then I will do another 24-minute segment, and then I'll answer your questions again. So this is a great opportunity for you to get any healthcare questions you might have answered. So I want to be your doctor, and we start that out by me answering healthcare questions. So if you're ready to go, boys and boys, ready? Hey, folks, Dr. Joe Esposito here. I am glad you're here because today, if you're a regular listener to the show, we're going to kind of go a little different direction. Normally, we talk about food and nutrition and spine and neurology and neurophysiology. Today, we're going to talk about chemicals, everyday chemicals that you're exposing yourself to that are disrupting your hormones. Now, that sounds like a pretty boring topic. It's not, because you will be amazed how many things you're exposing yourself to every day, from the food you eat to the perfume you wear to the car freshener that you use. All these things are having adverse effects on your hormones. They're called endocrine disruptors. Endocrine is your hormones. So modern world, we are full of toxic compounds. Nearly everything from the fish you eat to the water you drink is affected by this. Now, you may have heard a new term called microplastics. They've made their way into the most remote part of the oceans. Microplastics are little tiny, oftentimes invisible to the naked eye, plastic molecules that are getting into things like fish, and you're eating it. And then the plastic gets into the body, and it disrupts your hormones. Now, crops are sprayed with man-made pesticides, keep the pests away, also can destroy your body. Now, in some places, pollution is so thick, like Los Angeles, if you've ever been there, you can actually see the air. And so we really are in a different world than we were even 30 years ago. So I want to take a look at what these endocrine disruptors are and why they're so important, because a lot of your health problems that you have might be related to these endocrine disruptors, and you never realized it. A perfect example I'll give you. I had a patient come in the other day, a couple weeks ago actually now, and she wore a lot of perfume, and she had cancer. And I discussed with her how the cancer can be adversely affected by the endocrine disrupting effects of the perfume. And she had no idea. I've never heard that before. I've been to the cancer specialist. No one ever mentioned that to me before. So I talked about perfume having phthalates, and phthalates are endocrine disruptors, and she started crying. She says, how come nobody ever told me this before? Now, I'm not saying the cancer was caused by the perfume, but when you have cancer or any disease, you want to do everything you can to get well as fast as possible, and certainly not make it worse. So you're going to be surprised today at the things we talk about. So the endocrine system controls and regulates the activities in the body by secreting hormones into the blood system. Now, what are hormones? Hormones are messengers that bring information to the cells and help maintain the body's balance, or what we call homeostasis. Homeostasis is the body being in balance. Hormones can regulate everything, from the reproductive process to your metabolic function, how you burn fat, if you're how you develop sexually, if you have sexual functions. It affects so many things in the body. It affects the cells. So the hormone-producing glands are things like the hypothalamus, the pituitary, the pineal, the thyroid, the adrenal, the genitals, the gonads actually is the proper term there. So we are alive because of our hormones. And if you're old enough to remember, there was a commercial, and the commercial said it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. It's a commercial for margarine. Well, you're fooling Mother Nature with all these endocrine disrupting hormones. So the next few minutes we're going to spend together are going to change your life. You need to know what we're talking about here. So what are these endocrine disruptors? They're disrupting chemicals. They're called EDCs, endocrine disrupting chemicals. And they're chemicals that interfere with your hormone process. Now, they're natural EDCs and they're man-made ones. And they're abundantly found in so many different things that we have in everyday life, from food to cosmetics to plastics to water bottles. They either mimic hormones, they act like hormones. They block hormones, so they block up the receptor sites so the hormones can't be absorbed. They interfere with the production of hormones, or they modified your body's sensitivity to the hormones. You may have the hormones, your body's not sensitive to it. Insulin resistance is a good example of that. You have a hormone called insulin, and the cells or the food you're exposing yourself to can prevent the insulin from going into the cell. And insulin acts like a key. It opens up the cell and lets glucose or sugar into the cell. So there can be hormones that disrupt that process, and chemicals, I'm sorry, that disrupt this process, and you need to know about them. So I'm not going to be surprised if by the end of today, you walk out of here saying, my gosh, that's me. And I've been to all these different doctors. Nobody ever told me this. I've been tested. They can't find what's wrong. How many people have had that happen? Many times it's due to endocrine disruptors. All right, so let's jump in. We got a lot to cover today. Endocrine disruptor number 1, BPA. BPA, called bisphenol A. It's a chemical that's added to a lot of commercial products. It was discovered in the 1950s, but we didn't realize its versatility till the 1980s. Again, it wasn't that long ago this was introduced to our world. And we found out that BPA has a lot of different uses, and we can put it around our food, not necessarily in our food, but around our food. It gets into the food, and it doesn't have to be labeled. Now, the problem is there's something called BPA, bisphenol A. There's also something called bisphenol S, BPS. So you might see a product or a pot or a pan or a can that says BPA free. Means they don't have BPA. And you go, oh my gosh, Dr. Joe just talked about BPA. This is BPA free. It's safe. Not necessarily, because they could use other BPs, BPS, BP, other ones they have, and that can have a similar effect. So it's commonly mixed with other chemical compounds to make plastics strong. Now, it's important to remember, not all plastics contain BPA. So this is where it gets tricky. BPA is found in things like plastic baby bottles, epoxy resins, and they're used in the inner linings of cans to ensure the cans don't corrode and also make them a little more non-stick. Now, I've told this story before, but when I first graduated graduate school, I was very young. I was very smart and got out of school very young. And I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know anything about anything. So I had to practice. And at night, I used to deliver pizza for a very large delivery pizza chain. I won't say their name. And one of the things I learned, I was a delivery boy. I learned how to make the pizzas and kind of learn everything in the shop. And one of the things we had was this huge spatula. We scooped when you dumped the tomato sauce out, you'd scoop the can out to get the extra sauce out. There was enough for one more pizza. And that helped lower cost, of course. Well, we kind of came up around the 1980s when I was delivering pizza with something called BPA, bisphenol A. And they'd line the cans with this BPA, and now the sauce slides out. So if you're old enough to remember, it used to be hard to get things out of a can. Now, a lot of times it slides out. It has this non-stick coating in it. Now, BPA can trick your body into thinking it's estrogen. That's a pretty important sex hormone for men and women. And it's also a growth hormone. So BPA is linked to the proliferation or growth of cancer cells. It's also associated with things like obesity, heart disease, and early puberty onset. How come I've never heard of this BPA stuff, you're thinking? Well, it's there, folks. Now, so how do you avoid it? Whenever possible, eat fresh foods rather than canned foods. Containers can be lined with the BPA, and many companies are moving to BPA-free packaging. But again, might be BPS. Now, another place you're going to find things like BPA are in the wrappers of fast foods. So years ago, I remember being a kid, and even when I worked for this pizza company, you didn't want the pizza touching the box because the cheese would stick and then it would make a mess. Well, when you line the box with BPA or some type of non-stick chemical, the pizza cheese might touch it but not stick to it. And now we have something that makes it more palatable for the consumer, but more toxic. Hamburger wrappers, taco wrappers, they're many times lined with this non-stick coating that really is an endocrine disruptor. Now, when possible, you want to avoid plastics, especially the ones, this one I want you to remember, on the bottom they have a little triangle, and it says recycling number. The recycling number is 7. So 7 is not a lucky number on your plastic. If it has 7 on it, don't use that plastic, whether it's a water bottle or any type of container. So bisphenol A, not your friend, and messing with your hormones. Now, if you have breast cancer or any type of cancer, it acts like estrogen, and estrogen causes the cells to grow. And that's where the problem comes in. It's a growth hormone. And we don't want abnormal cell growth ever, certainly if you have cancer. And you may not know you have cancer until the BPA caused the growth of it to happen. So another endocrine disruptor, we'll call this one number 2, is called dioxin. Now, dioxin, it's an environmental pollutant. They're produced most often as a result of industrial activities. Now, according to the World Health Organization, they have a highly toxic potential, and the Environmental Protection Agency has been hard at work to help reduce the amounts of dioxins in the environment. But you know what? We're all part of the environment. That's why it's so hard to avoid these things. Now, once a dioxin enters your body, it gets absorbed and it gets stored in the fat cells. It happens in animals too. Now, disturbingly, they have a half-life of up to 11 years. What that means is it takes 11 years for half of it to break down. So they're going to be in your body for a long time. Dioxins disrupt the chemical pathways of male and female sex hormones and how they communicate with the body. So expose yourself to dioxins, you're messing with Mother Nature again. They've been linked to numerous diseases, including low sperm count in men and low psychomotor scores in babies, even in the uterus. And so how's the baby developing? Now, it's an interesting study that I read a while ago that my grandfather had twice as much sperm than my father did, and my father has twice as much sperm than I have. So we're feminizing our world. We're making men less manly. I'm not talking about, how macho it is, but actually their testosterone levels are dropping, their sperm count levels are dropping. And years ago, we didn't really hear much about people not being able to get pregnant. And I can't tell you how many patients come in, and again, we're a pain management clinic, chiropractic clinic, nutrition clinic. Patients come in, and in their history, they say, we're trying to get pregnant, we can't. And I see it all the time now. And so a lot of that, I feel, has to do with these environmental chemicals that we're dumping all over our bodies. Now, how do you avoid them? Dioxins contaminate a lot of the American food supply. Factory-produced meat, fish, milk, eggs, and butter are most likely contaminated. So once again, I'm going to say, if you're going to eat meat, and you shouldn't, I don't think you should, but if you're going to eat meat or any animal products, I'm going to recommend organic only. My rule when I deal with my patients to do my consultations is this. If you're going to eat animal products, organic only or don't eat it. I prefer you don't eat it, but if you're going to eat it, it's got to be organic. Now, 20, 30 years ago, we didn't have to worry about that. Now we do. And so eating meat, not my choice. I would certainly not recommend anybody eat animal products, but if you're going to, make sure they're organic. You also want to cut down your exposure by eating a lot more fruits and vegetables because fiber, on all these things we're going to talk about, can push a lot of toxins out of your system. Now, we talked about this stuff being stored in the fat cells. So this is one of the dangers that comes in is when you eat an animal product, many times you're eating the animal fat. And that's what makes it taste so good. Let's call it what it is. A nice marbled steak, when it's marbled, it has white lines through it. That's the fat. And that's what makes it taste juicy and tender. So, again, I recommend staying away from animal products, but if you do eat them, make sure they're organic to avoid a lot of toxins, including things like dioxins. Atrazine is another one. It's an herbicide. It's sprayed on corn crops. I'm not a fan of eating corn because most corn in this country has been genetically modified. And that's a whole lecture for another day. If you're going to eat corn, that's another thing that needs to be organic, but the chances are pretty high that the corn has probably been cross-contaminated. I attended a lecture the other day from a company called Standard Process. It's one of the supplement companies we use. And they talked about their manufacturing is all organic. Everything's organic. They recycle it, the soil. They compost everything. It's a huge, huge farm. And they grow the products, and then they actually make the supplements out of it. And somebody said, well, what about drift? So if I spray chemicals on my crop and your organic farm is next to me, chances are it's going to get on it. Well, what they do is they have a barrier of trees, they said, around each one of their fields to try to limit the amount of exposure. Now, you can't get 100% limitation. You're going to get some type of exposure. And so that's a big problem because just even if it's organic, there is some drift. So corn is a big issue because it is genetically modified in many cases. Now, researchers found exposure to atrazine can have a profound effect on sex hormone production. Again, we keep talking about these hormones, especially sex hormones. It can turn male frogs into female frogs that are actually viable enough to lay eggs. That's how dangerous it is and how it can affect your hormones. Scientifically linked to breast tumors and prostate inflammation in animals. So once again, if you're over 40, I've done shows on men's health. If you're over 40, chances are your prostate's starting to swell. And a swollen prostate can affect sexual function, urinary function. Ultimately, if it's swollen, it can actually convert itself into cancer, so that's not a good idea. So how do you avoid atrazine? Extremely common. You want to limit your exposure, try to buy organic produce whenever possible, and you also want to get a good water filter. And the reason I say this is because you do a lot with water. Think about a day in your life and how many times you use water. You shower, you go to the bathroom, you wash your hands, you drink your water, you wash your fruits and vegetables, you cook with it. Water is a big part of your life. And we have filters because most water is recycled, by the way. It's toilet water that's been recycled. Let's call it what it is. And they can filter out viruses, germs, bacteria, but many times chemicals can get through because they call it safe levels of atrazine or whatever the chemical is. There is no safe level. It's low, but it's not safe. So I have a whole house water filter at my house, and I filter everything that comes into my house so that there's no chlorine outgassing from the toilet. I know that sounds silly. How bad is that going to be? Probably not a big thing. But I want to cover every aspect of health for you. I want to make sure you're doing everything you can to beat the odds that most people have, sickness and disease, and get well. We talked last week, I think it was, we talked about how 9 out of 10 adult Americans have at least one chronic disease, and 8 out of 10 have more than one chronic disease. Why is that? Why are so many people so sick? A lot of it has to do with exposure to these endocrine disruptors. So I have a water filter in my house. If you want to, send me a message through my website, drjoe.com, and I'll send you the brand name. I don't want to say it on the air because I don't want to promote them, but it's a good product. I've researched it. So just go to drjoe.com. You can send me a message, say water filter. I'll send you my link. Now, that being said, let's talk about the website for a second. On our website, we have over 4,000 hours of content. So if you go to the website and just type in what you're looking for, chances are we've done a radio show on it, a blog on it, and a TV show on it. So it's a great place to research. Also, if you have any questions, send them to me through the website, drjoe.com. Now, a lot of these toxins that we're talking about can build up in your liver and your fat cells. So there's a wonderful supplement. I take it every day to help detoxify my liver. Okay, it's called chlorella. Now, chlorella, we use it in Dr. Joe's Super Greens. And you should be taking Super Greens, an essential source, every day anyway. But, related to this topic today, the chlorella can break down toxins in your liver and flush it out of your system. And so another reason to take Super Greens, and I can't imagine why you're not taking it. The minimum supplements I think everybody should be taking are Dr. Joe's Super Greens and Dr. Joe's Essential Source. They're 2 powders, mix them together, take them every day. Don't leave them in your counter. Don't put it away and forget they're there. Because patients say all the time, Dr. Joe, I ordered Super Greens and Essential Source. I've had it for 6 months now. No, it's a month's supply. You should have taken it. It doesn't do you any good in a jar. You got to eat it. So Dr. Joe's Super Greens, Dr. Joe's Essential Source, you get it at drjoe.com. We ship that day or the next business day. So whenever you order it, we ship it. Or come to our offices. In the Atlanta area, we have offices in Marietta, Duluth, Stockbridge, and West Cobb. And you can book an appointment and come see us, which really is the best thing. But you can just stop by and pick up supplements if you'd like to as well. And there's a lot of supplements I recommend, but for this specific topic, Super Greens and Essential Source, absolutely. I also recommend nitric oxide. Nitric oxide opens up your blood vessels and can increase circulation to help flush out some of these toxics like talking about, like atrazine, dioxin, things like that. So Super Greens, Essential Source, nitric oxide. If you have low blood pressure, don't take nitric oxide. If you have normal or high blood pressure, nitric oxide is fine. And in fact, it's one of my favorite supplements because you feel it. Opens up your blood vessels, increases circulation to your brain, helps you think better, gives you energy, helps in the romantic department in many cases. So I'd strongly advise Super Greens and Essential Source and nitric oxide, especially when we're talking about endocrine disrupting hormones. And if you have a health problem, neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, come see us. Stop suffering needlessly. drjoe.com, book an appointment. We can get you in this week. We have appointments in all 4 of our offices available every week for new patients. So drjoe.com, just make the appointment. I have patients come in all the time, literally from all over the world. I had one this week come in from New Jersey. We have them come in from Japan, China, Germany, Guam. And they say, I don't know why I waited so long. I've suffered for so many years with this health problem. Why did I wait so long? I don't know. Just go to drjoe.com, book an appointment. So what we're talking about today, if you're just joining us, We're talking about endocrine disrupting chemicals, chemicals that are in our environment and in our food that can adversely affect our health. Now, about 20 minutes ago, I talked about something called phthalates. Now, they're called plasticizers. How's that for a big word? And it's used in PVC production. They're not chemically bound to the PVC. PVC is polyvinyl chloride, what we make pipes out of. But they often leach into the food and to the air. Now, humans are typically exposed through direct contact and general environmental contamination because everybody is exposed to plastic pipes, right? Your house, your office, go to the restaurant, there's plastic pipes everywhere. We ingest it, we inhale it, come in contact with phthalates over the course of our entire lifetime, and including when you're in intrauterine development, when you're developing in your mother. If the mother is exposed to these chemicals, it gets into the uterus, and it causes problems. I was up in North Georgia last weekend, and I was at an apple farm. And there was a man there, and he was probably in his 50s or 60s, and his arms were very short, his hands were malformed, and he walked with a limp, and he had a look about him. And I said, I bet you that's from thalidomide. Now, thalidomide was a chemical that they gave back in the 60s to mothers who had morning sickness. It was perfectly safe until it caused birth defects and children started dying. That's when it wasn't perfectly safe. So, again, we don't know it's a problem until it's a problem, and then it's a problem. So many times things are approved, and then long-term studies come out on it and go, we killed a lot of babies and made a lot of deformed babies because of this stuff, mentally and physically. Maybe it wasn't a good idea. So these chemicals that we're talking about today are some of these chemicals. They are causing problems. I promise you in the future, it's only going to get worse. And you have the option to expose yourself to these things or not. Now, back to phthalates. They can prematurely signal testicular cells to die. Gentlemen, how many would like your testicular cells to die? Raise your hands. Nobody better raise their hands. Although it's normal for cells to die off, premature cell death is not typical. And studies have also tied phthalates to significant hormone changes, lower sperm count, and thyroid irregularities. Every day on my website, drjoe.com, people send me a question about their thyroid. Every day. And so a lot of it has to do with these environmental toxins that they're exposed to. So how do you avoid them? Avoid plastic food containers and plastic wrap, which is recycled labeled number 3. So you want to avoid recycled number 3. Cosmetic products often contain phthalates, perfumes, hairsprays. Read the ingredients. Phthalates are parfum, P-A-R-F-U-M. Don't use it. They're sold by cosmetics from a company that there are some companies that have phthalate-free products. Use them. So you go to the makeup store or anything, it says phthalate-free. That's a better choice because the change is happening. I went plant-based 36, 38 years ago. And back then it was beans and rice or rice and beans. Those were your choices. Now you're seeing almost everywhere I go. I was at a steakhouse the other day. I got invited to a dinner. And don't eat meat, but I went to the dinner anyway. And I just whispered to the waiter, I don't eat animal products. I'm vegan. Can you put something together for me? And they did. They put a vegetable plate for me together. So years ago, that didn't happen. The trend is now we're seeing phthalate-free. We're seeing BPA-free. We're seeing plant-based foods. We're seeing at least one plant-based choice on almost every menu across the country. So the word is getting out. Shows like this are getting the world, the country excited that you now have control over your own health. And that's what it is. How many people have cancer and say, I have cancer? And I ask them, how'd you get it? I don't know. How about high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol? I don't know. Did anyone ever talk about getting to the cause of your healthcare problem and not just treating the symptoms? And the answer is a resounding no. No one has ever talked about getting to the cause of my healthcare problem. That's what I do. So if you want to make an appointment to come see us, whether it's neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, headache, sciatica, digestive issues, brain fog, weight issues, go to my website, drjoe.com. Book an appointment right now. In the Atlanta area, 4 offices, Marietta, Duluth, Stockbridge, and West Cobb. We can do remote virtual meetings if we need to, if you're not in the Atlanta area. But stop suffering. Every day that goes by, your health problem's getting worse in most cases. So drjoe.com. Follow me on social media. We post every single day. You're going to get health tips every single day from me. It's at Dr. Joe Esposito, at Dr. Joe Esposito. And the podcast is Dr. Joe for the Health of It on your podcast service. Dr. Joe for the Health of It. We'll be right back. You have questions? No questions at all. Oh, wait. Ha. You lied to me. First person ever lied to me, Garrett.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Decades on this earth. You're the first one.
We'll see.
That's a lie, too. Yeah.
Um, do cold showers and ice baths have health benefits?
Yes, absolutely. It helps increase your human growth hormone. In fact, one of the best ways to increase human growth hormone is extreme cold, not extreme cold, but an ice bath. And you don't do it for hours. You do it for 30 seconds or a minute. Or just when you're done with your shower, turn on the cold water for 30 seconds. Increases human growth hormone, which is important because it helps build muscle mass and brain function. It can increase your caloric burning. It kicks in your metabolism. So the answer is a resounding yes. I don't like them, but they work.
Does an apple a day really keep the doctor away?
If you throw it at me, yeah, I will run. Now, if you're going to eat apples, let's talk about that actually, because I know you're joking, but I'm going to give you a serious answer to that. Commercial apples are grown and they're sprayed with a lot of chemicals, like we talked about the pesticides and chemicals, and then they're dipped in wax. And the wax actually seals in those pesticides. So if you're going to eat apples, I recommend organic only. Now, if it's not an organic apple and you have to eat it, dip it in hot water. This is a fun experiment you can do. You dip your apple in hot water and watch the wax rise to the surface. It melts the wax and raises it up to the surface. Really hot water, like boiling water. Then once the wax is off and you clean it really good, then you can eat it. But I would recommend organic apples if you're going to eat them.
Is there any harm in storing leftovers in plastic containers?
Yes, absolutely. That's this whole point of the show today. Now, if it's cold, I would recommend it's probably okay, but not frozen, because when things freeze, they expand and they scratch the containers. I recommend glass. I just went to Costco recently and I got a set of, 8 or 10 glass containers. It was like $20. Those are okay. I would recommend storing everything you possibly can in glass and as little as you can in plastic. Now, if I have some salad without a dressing on it, that's probably safe to put in a plastic container. Use as much glass as possible.
To add on to that, what about the resurgence of all the different types of water bottles? What's the best material for your water bottle?
Best material would be glass or stainless steel. And that's why I recommend a whole house water filter. Now, we're off the air, so I can say it. I use a company called Pure Life Water GA. Pure Life Water GA, all one word. That's the filter I have in my house. Feel free to call them, tell them I sent you, or send them an email. They'll come out, do a consultation for you, no charge. But that's why I don't buy bottled water ever. I have my stainless steel containers like I put my tea in, and I always bring, if I go out with me, that. Now, if I buy a glass bottle of, let's say, organic herbal iced tea or something like that, I'll do that. But please don't drink out of water bottles. Please, 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 please. So, what else?
Last thing I would add to your conversation about the spraying, leaching over into other people's fields.
Uh-huh.
Do you ever see the one particular company that makes some of that spray and some of the seeds?
I know what you're talking about.
And the seeds end up in the fields of other farmers.
Yes.
And then they repossess their fields.
There was a Canadian farmer. Garrett's exactly right. And there was cross-pollination. And the cross-pollination with the genetically modified food cross-contaminated this farmer that didn't use genetically modified food. Well, they took samples of the farmer who got cross-contaminated and said, you're using our seeds, we're going to sue you. He says, I'm not using your seeds. Went to court in Canada and lost. I think he lost his farm because the cross-contamination of the genetically modified food. That's how brutal
he did lose his farm, and about a 24 other farmers have lost their land sets.
Brutal, because you got to buy our seeds, and if you have our seeds, which he really didn't, you stole our seeds. And I don't know all the details, but that's how it ended, and I think that's ridiculous. So that's why it's important to try to do organic whenever possible. Now, if you're not going to eat the skin, banana, orange, okay, a cantaloupe, wash it with soap and water first, then cut it so you don't cut and push things in. And that might be a little more acceptable to not do organic. But if you're going to come close to eating the skin, like lettuces or something like that, please, I'm begging you, organic only. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
No, let's go on to...
Okay, let's move on to part 2. Got a little tickle there. All right, where was I? Okay, we did phthalates, perchlorate, lead. Oh, we got arsenic. We had a lot to cover today. Where are we? We're at number 4. We got a lot more. All right, let's see how much I can cover. Ready? Hey, folks, Dr. Joe here, Joe Esposito, in case you're wondering who I am. If you're just joining us, welcome. And what we're talking about today, and if you're regular to my show, you know I talk a lot about food and how the body works and physiology, that's how the body works, and neurology, how the nervous system works. Today we're talking about environmental chemicals that you're being exposed to many times every single day, and it may be the cause of your healthcare problems. Because when I sit down with people, I had a patient the other day, and he had selenium toxicity. I did a hair analysis on him, selenium toxicity. I didn't know what to do because it's so rare to get selenium toxicity. You have to eat like pounds and pounds of beef liver that's been contaminated, and I mean things like this. So anyway, I said to him, do you use dandruff shampoo? And he said no. I said, okay, because dandruff shampoo has selenium sulfide in it. And I thought that's really the most common way you'd get selenium exposure. So I talked to him 2 or 3 times on several visits, and he named the brand shampoo that he uses, and sure enough, it was a dandruff shampoo. And I said, stop using it. He says, yeah, but. I said, no buts. You have selenium toxicity. Now, selenium's good to a point. His was too much. His wife also had selenium toxicity. In my career of 40 years of doing this, first 2 people I've ever met with selenium toxicity. Now, it took a little investigating to find out what it was. Had we not found out what it was, it could have been very serious to their health and maybe even deadly. So that's why it's important to really limit your body's exposure to a lot of these chemicals. Perchlorate's another one. It's a chemical. It's found in nature, but it's also found in rocket fuels, fireworks, road flares. Ironically, it also contaminates much of our milk. So how many people drink milk? Raise your hands. A lot of you do. When perchlorate enters the body, it interferes with iodine uptake. So what happens is your thyroid gland needs iodine to work properly. If you have perchlorate into your body, it can block up your thyroid, prevent you from absorbing it. And that can alter thyroid hormone function and ultimately affect your metabolism, your brain function, your organ development, cause you to gain weight. I have people all the time say, Dr. Joe, I'm eating nothing but fruits and vegetables. I can't lose weight. I can't lose weight. So then I'll say, okay, what are we doing in our lives? And we find out that they're doing things that can be affecting the metabolism. So that's a big issue to be concerned with. So how do you do it? Once again, a good water filter. Good water filter is a good way to reduce your ingestion of perchlorate. Also, ensure you have adequate intake of iodine. Most people, especially in the United States, do not get enough iodine. So I'm going to ask you a question. You can answer it to yourself because I can't hear you. Where do you get your iodine from? Now, some of you who are really smart, you're going to say, well, Dr. Joe, I use iodized salt. And that's why we have iodine. And what happened was years ago, we found that people in the Midwest, away from the oceans, were getting goiters. The thyroid was getting larger and larger because it wasn't getting enough iodine. And so some brilliant scientist somewhere said, what's one product that everybody uses that we can put iodine in to supplement the diet? And we realized salt was the choice. And that's why you see the word iodized salt. That means it has iodine added because most people get almost zero iodine in their diet. Now, this is another reason why you should be taking Dr. Joe's Super Greens and Dr. Joe's Essential Source, because both Super Greens and Essential Source have sea vegetables, which are iodine rich. Another reason why you should be taking Super Greens and Essential Source, and if you listen to what I said earlier, the chlorella in the Super Greens can help detoxify the liver, which is where a lot of these toxins are stored. So you've got to get these toxins out of the system. And that's why it's so important to make sure you're eating the right amount of foods, and at least Super Greens and Essential Source for the iodine, for the liver detoxification, a lot of other things as well. A water filter. There's so many toxins in the water, even though it's filtered, and I know it's safe, so to speak, but the toxins in the water can build up. So if I were to take a blood pressure medication, you were to take a birth control pill, and Garrett was to take cholesterol medication, we would utilize it in our body, and the waste part of it would be passed out of our bodies. And the water we drink, most cases, is recycled water. It comes from a recycling plant. So we flush the toilet, and it goes to the recycling plant, and the cholesterol and the birth control pills and the blood pressure medications are recycled. We have filters to filter out a lot of things. We don't have filters to filter out medications and a lot of chemicals like perchlorate. So that's why a whole house water filter, I feel, is so important. At least get a shower water filter. And I know that sounds strange, but when you shower, the pores open up. You take a hot shower, your pores open up, and you absorb a lot of the chemicals that are in the water. For example, if I take an average hot shower, I'm absorbing the equivalent of about 8 glasses of water's worth of chlorine. Chlorine kills bacteria, kills good bacteria as well as bad bacteria. So chlorine can get into my colon and kill off my good bacteria. And that's not good because things like yeast start to overgrow, bad bacteria can take over. It acts sort of like an antibiotic. So another reason to get a good whole house water filter. If you send me an email through the website, drjoe.com, I'll tell you the brand that I use if you want to know. But it's important to get a good whole house water filter. Another thing, and this was a good idea when it came out, was flame retardants. We're talking about endocrine disruptors, by the way. These are things that mess with your hormone system. Now, polybrominated, it's a diphenol esters, they're called, are flame retardants found in consumer products. They're so widespread that they're in everything from TVs to mattresses to baby clothes. They're everywhere. Now, these chemicals are so widespread that they actually accumulate in people's bodies, but also in the wildlife. So if you're eating animals from the wild or even farm-raised, chances are you're going to get exposed to these flame retardants. Now, these chemicals can imitate thyroid hormones in your body and alter thyroid functions. They've been linked to hyperthyroidism and low IQ. They don't make you so smart. And you're thinking to yourself, well, Dr. Joe, I don't know why I have this thyroid problem. I don't know why I have this. It could be because your mattress that you sleep on every night, your couch that you sit on every day, the clothes you wear are covered with these flame retardants. Even the chemicals you spray on your sofa to prevent it from staining, those are toxic. And what's interesting with flame retardants and a lot of these chemicals we use on furniture is every time you sit down, a little bit is released into the air. And over time, the couch breaks down, the chair breaks down, it gets older, and releases more chemicals into the air. Now, you can avoid exposure to flame retardants by wearing an industrial mask if you're going to replace your carpets. Now, if you're going to replace your carpets, I strongly advise you do, by the way. In my house, there are no carpets. Everything is hardwood and tile. And there's a reason for that. When I bought the house, it was built in the 90s, and it had peach carpet all over the place. And I thought it was nice at the time. But then I started learning about carpets and how bad they are and how they build up viruses and germs and bacteria and fungus and mold. And so if you tear up a carpet, and many times they have flame retardant chemicals, they're going to be released into the air. So be careful about that. And the padding underneath the carpets oftentimes contain these flame retardants as well. Now, you can consider using a vacuum cleaner with a HEPA filter, which is a good idea if you do have a carpet. That can cut down on the toxic chemicals in the air. And you want to vacuum a lot because the carpets are always breaking down. Now, I'm a big fan of robot vacuums. They're not HEPA filters, but I love my robot vacuums. I have one for every floor in my house, 2 floors. And I run it at least 2 or 3 times a week because you push a button, you go out, you come home, and it's done. It's kind of nice. So, again, if you're going to replace your carpets, please do with either hardwood or tile. If you're going to do hardwood, make sure it's pre-finished hardwood. Don't put down unfinished hardwood, then you have to sand and stain and seal, and then those chemicals are going to outgas in your house up to 6 months. So pre-stained hardwoods, tiles, that's the way I think you should go, and you can avoid a lot of these chemicals. And the flame retardants, I mean, it's a good idea to have it in a baby crib, right? It's a good idea to have it on baby clothes, right? But it's affecting the thyroid. Not a good idea. Another problem I have is mercury and lead. Now, you probably know how dangerous lead is. In fact, I just want to talk about it again. Lead is toxic. It affects the organs in the body. It affects mental health. It could cause brain damage, lower IQ, hearing loss, miscarriage, increased blood pressure, kidney damage, nervous system impairment. Lead is so dangerous that it's been outlawed in paint. And if you have an old house, you have to have hazmat people come in hazmat suits to scrape the old paint out. So if you buy an old house, you want to do some rehab on it, chances are that paint is starting to flake. And it happened, I remember when I was a kid, people in the poor cities, poor parts of town, because we were poor, kids would eat the paint chips and get lead poisoning. So it disrupts the hormone signaling and regulates your body's stress system, and that can lead your body to not deal with stress properly, be more susceptible to immune function impairment, high blood pressure, anxiety, depression. Now, lead is found mainly in old paint, and it can be inhaled from crumbling old paint. So that's why I always wear a mask if you're doing a renovation. But mercury is another one. Now, mercury and aluminum, might as well cover all three of them. Those are the big ones, mercury, lead, and aluminum. Mercury is oftentimes found in fish, seafood. And the bottom dwellers have much higher content of mercury than even the swimming fish. And the swimming fish have a lot in there. So if you like mussels, clams, oysters, crabs, lobster, chances are you're eating a lot of mercury. Because mercury is heavy, it settles to the bottom, right? And so then the fish get it into their system. So the bottom dwellers are the worst. And clams, crabs, clams and mussels, they're filters. If you have dirty water, you put mussels in, it cleans the water. In fact, there was a story a while ago that there was a river, I think it might have been Michigan? Anyway, I don't remember exactly where it was. But anyway, the river was so dirty, they put mussels in to filter out the water. They did an excellent job. Well, then the mussels took over because they had so much toxins to live on that they started wiping out the indigenous fish. So anyway, lesson about nature there. But I would strongly advise you don't eat shellfish. Now, I used to like shellfish. I used to go mussling and clamming in New Jersey. I used to go crabbing in New Jersey. In fact, my family at the time had the largest crab catch ever in Tom's River. We made newspaper and everything. And we used to catch crabs in a place called the Meadowlands in New Jersey. Now, if you've ever listened to a Bruce Springsteen song, he talks about the swamps of Jersey. That's where I grew up, right around the swamps of Jersey. And we go crabbing in the meadows, we called it. And we take the crabs home and boil them and eat them. Now, I never liked them, so I didn't eat a whole lot. But my cousins and my uncles did. And we were eating tons of mercury and lead and heavy metals. And how do we know this? Because one day we went down to the meadows to go crabbing, and there was a sign on this road that led into the meadows, Meadowlands condemned. They condemned a whole area of New Jersey for toxic chemicals. We were eating the fish and the crabs out of there. How insane is that? Now, again, I didn't eat a lot, thank God. But, yeah, you want to stay away from those bottom dwellers. When Moses, remember Moses? He wrote a part of the Bible called Leviticus. And in Leviticus, Moses says, don't eat shellfish. And we know that in certain religions, eating shellfish is against the religion. Why is that? Why would be eating a lobster be against a religion? Because it's so unhealthy for you. That it was even written down in religious writings not to eat these things because we didn't want the people of the tribe or the religion getting sick. And that was 3,000 years ago, maybe longer. It's a lot worse now than it was then. So please, I'm begging you, don't eat bottom dwellers. If you're going to eat swimming fish, make sure they're wild caught, not farm raised. And fish, you think, well, fish is high in omega-3 fatty acids. Not a good choice, actually, because many times it's contaminated with things like mercury. The body needs 0 mercury, 0 lead, and 0 aluminum to function normally. Now, I have somebody in my extended family, and she wanted me to do a hair analysis on her, and I did. And one of the things we found was aluminum toxicity. And now, in the old days, there were aluminum pots and pans or aluminum cans, and so there's a way to get aluminum. But aluminum isn't as widespread as it used to be, except in one product. What product is high in aluminum? Antiperspirant. Aluminum chlorhydrate is used in antiperspirants. And it's the only way she could be exposed to mercury, because I know her lifestyle. And she's about 72 years old, I think. And I said, you have to stop using antiperspirant. And she said, but I like using antiperspirant because then I don't sweat. I said, but you have aluminum toxicity in your body. So I talked her into it. I switched her to a deodorant. What I use for a deodorant, because people ask, what do you do, Dr. Joe? What I do is I take rubbing alcohol, cheap bottle, $2, a big bottle, and I add enough tea tree oil, Teatree. I add enough tea tree oil to it so it smells like tea tree oil. It doesn't smell like alcohol anymore. I have it in a spray bottle. I bought it at the dollar store for $1, $1.25. And I spray it under my arms as I get out of the shower. And it works 99% of the time. And I'll be doing radio, I'll be doing television, I'll be doing lectures. It works. So it's a really inexpensive, safer way to keep the perspiration from being an issue. And also make sure you shave your armpits, men and women, because bacteria can build up there. You want to shave it and make it cleaner too. So lead, aluminum, mercury, highly toxic chemicals. They mess with the brain. They mess with the nervous system. They mess with the endocrine system. And it causes real serious issues. And we're finding now, and I don't know if you've noticed it where you are, but every about third block is now senior housing. You notice it? Senior housing everywhere. You ever see how much they charge for senior housing? A cheap place, a dump, might cost you $5,000 a month. Nice place, $10,000, $15,000 a month to be in senior housing. And a lot of those people there have memory issues. And a lot of it has to do with their lifestyle that they had before they got old. I don't want you to end up in memory care. I want you to enjoy every penny you've ever made in your life. Spend it all, enjoy it, leave it to your kids, whatever you want to do. But don't go spending it on memory care housing because you decided to do something silly like eat bottom-dwelling fish and use antiperspirant. Not saying that's the cause of it, but there sure is a direct correlation. And I want to take every risk that I can out of my life. And that's a good idea. So if you're just tuning in, I'm Dr. Joe Esposito. We're talking today about endocrine-disrupting hormones and chemicals in your body. Now, as a chiropractor, as a pain management expert, as a nutrition expert, I'm very concerned about the brain and the spinal cord because the brain and the spinal cord control everything. And I can give you the best chiropractic care in the world, or maybe you can get the best medical care in the world, or the best surgical care in the world, best physical therapy care in the world. If you have heavy metal toxicity, you're not going to get the results that you want. You can't. You've short-circuited the wiring. If you've taken endocrine-disrupting hormones, it can cause abnormal cell growth, thyroid problems, testicle problems, ovary problems, liver issues. And so we want to stop it before it gets bad. So if you have a health issue, whether it's neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, numbness, tingling, sciatic pain, if you're ever in a car accident, a sports injury, workers' comp injury, please come see us. In the Atlanta area, we have offices in Marietta, Duluth, Stockbridge, and West Cobb. I want to be your doctor. Me and my team of doctors want to be your doctors. We want to get to the cause of your healthcare problems and not just cover it up or treat the symptoms. So if you want to make an appointment, drjoe.com, drjoe.com. You can book it right online. You can call us. We accept people with all insurances. Now, what your insurance covers is up to your insurance company, but we accept you. Some people won't even talk to you. We want you in. We have cash plans available. We have payment plans available, 18 months interest-free in many cases. We want to do everything we can to get to the cause of your healthcare problem from a structural, chiropractic standpoint, nutrition standpoint, digestive standpoint, supplement standpoint. I don't know of anybody else anywhere that does a thorough job like we do, the way we address our patients. So drjoe.com, stop suffering needlessly. Biggest complaint I get, why didn't I do this sooner? Why did I wait so many years or months or days even to come see you guys? Because now you got to the cause of my problem, not just covering it up and treating the symptoms. So drjoe.com, book your appointment right now, and we'll get you in as soon as possible. So what we're talking about today are endocrine-disrupting chemicals, chemicals that mess with your hormones. Arsenic is another one. If you ingest arsenic, it can be fatal. Many people unknowingly ingest it in small amounts, and that can actually lead to chronic diseases. Now, arsenic is a hormone disruptor, like we talked about. It interferes with the hormone functioning in the glucocorticoid system, and that regulates sugar and carbohydrate metabolism. How many of you want to mess with your sugar metabolism and increase your fat? Raise your hands. Nobody does. Arsenic can mess with that. Disruption of this system, it can be linked to weight fluctuations, suppression of the immune system, insulin resistance, osteoporosis. It's so funny because people come to me and they have these conditions, osteoporosis, immune suppressed, and they just have it. They never thought about how they got it. I just got it. I got high blood pressure. How'd you get it? I don't know. I just got it. Diabetes, cholesterol. I just got it. Well, let's do everything we can to prevent you from getting it. How about that? And we do that by getting the nervous system working, the digestive system working, the diet straightened out. So with arsenic, once again, a good water filter is going to be key. And since arsenic can be found in contaminated soil, washing your vegetables is a good idea. Now, rice has arsenic, even organic rice. Arsenic is in the soil. Rice has a tendency to absorb it. Aluminum can be absorbed by black tea. Black tea has a tendency to absorb aluminum, even if it's organic. It's just how the plant is. So the best rice to eat, if you're going to eat rice, is California organic rice. It has the lowest levels of arsenic. Now, how does arsenic get in a lot of products? Many times, chickens are fed arsenic because arsenic is heavy and it makes the chicken weigh more and you can sell it for more. And then chickens poop it out, and the poop is then sold to farmers and they use it as fertilizer. And that's how a lot of arsenic gets into the soil. So if you're going to eat rice, again, please make sure organic California rice is the best choice. Still has arsenic, but it's lower. Now, you can do things instead of rice. You could do quinoa, Q-U-I-N-O-A. Is that how it's spelled, I think? Millet. Those are better choices. But if you're going to do rice, and periodically I have rice in my life, try to do organic and try to do California. Okay. Mercury already talked about. Wild salmon and is a better choice than non-wild salmon. I never recommend eating farm-raised fish ever, because many times they're fed steroids, chemicals, hormones, antibiotics, pesticides, washes in. In fact, there was one place I saw a video on it. It was somewhere in Micronesia where there were huts all around this big pond, basically, or lake. And the people, when they flushed their toilets, would just flush into the pond. And the shrimp that they were raising in this pond would eat the waste products. So that's a little thought for you, too. Now, I used to like these things. I understand that shrimp can be tasty. I understand that a lot of things can be tasty that are seafood. I prefer you don't eat them. Eat other things that are tasty that are better for you. If you don't know what to eat, go to my website, drjoe.com, and just type in, "So what can I eat?" And we talk about what you can eat there. It's about a 45-minute lecture. It talks about breakfast, lunches, dinner, snacks, stacking a pantry, unstacking a pantry, raising kids. So many people say, "I'll do what you say, Dr. Joe. I just don't know what to do." I did a personality quiz a while ago, Myers-Briggs. And I am a ENTJ, that personality type. Very practical. If you want, give it to me, and tell me what you want, I'll give it to you. Very clear. So I think very clearly and very objectively and very linear. Other people have different personality types. So I understand different personalities, but it just makes sense to everyone, I think, to eat the right foods. And that's what every lecture I ever give you is, a very direct, straightforward, linear thought process. Get in there, do the right thing, see the benefits. It's not hard to figure out. So mercury is not a good idea. Again, fish is the biggest thing. Higher mercury fish are things like mackerel, shark, swordfish. The fattier the fish, the more mercury it has. And the way it happens, in case you want to know how it gets here, there's a lot of coal burning plants in China. And when they burn the coal, the smoke gets in the air, floats over the Pacific or over the Atlantic, and it settles down in the water, and the microorganisms absorb this mercury, and then it works its way up the food chain. In case you wonder how it gets there. But please stay away from mercury. So dangerous. Mercury, lead, aluminum, and now you know how to avoid them. It's pretty simple. So there's a lot of chemicals that we need to talk about. I got so many things to talk about. I just don't have a lot of time. Organophosphate pesticides. Buying organic produce is really going to limit your exposure to all pesticides. Staying away from animal products is the key, too, because the animals eat the food that's sprayed with pesticide, and then it gets stored in the fat. I got a lot more to cover. Not going to have time to do it. If you have any healthcare questions, please send a message through my website, drjoe.com, drjoe.com. Happy to answer your healthcare questions. The supplements we talked about earlier, chlorella and spirulina, Supergreen, Essential Source, nitric oxide, probiotics, they're all available on the website, drjoe.com. If you're not sure what you specifically need, send me an email. We can set up a consultation, or if it's a simple question, I'll give you an answer. And let's get you on quality products, eating the right food, get your nervous system working. Neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain. This is telling you the nervous system has been compromised. Let's get your digestive system working. And watch what happens when that happens. Folks, follow me on social media at Dr. Joe Esposito, at Dr. Joe Esposito, all one word. And for podcast, it's Dr. Joe for the health of it. Dr. Joe for the health of it. I'm Dr. Joe Esposito. Thanks for tuning in, folks. I'll get you next time. So much more to cover.
So I did have one question on how and where can I find this specific show. And I would like to point out any of our live streams are immediately available after they end on the platform that you're viewing currently. They're all archived forever.
Facebook, Instagram. They're not. We got to talk to you about that. I see when I end a show, like a Sunday night show, it says you want to store this for 30 days. How do you save it forever?
Posting it. So you do it on Instagram.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Facebook and Instagram.
Facebook and Instagram. So Facebook will automatically archive that into your live section or live tab on your
Right.
page. And then Instagram, you have to click through and actually post when it's done.
I think I do.
And then it creates a post in and of itself.
When we're done here, check my Instagram files and make
Wait.
sure I'm doing it right.
Yeah,
Okay,
when
good.
we finish, I'll
Yeah.
show you how I do it here.
Good, okay.
But otherwise, guys, you can also find the show within about a week on any and all of your favorite podcast platforms as a podcast.
Yeah, at Dr. Joe for the health of it. Dr. Joe for the health of it. Yeah.
So if you're tired of looking at him like I am,
Sick
can
of
listen.
it for years now. Just go to your podcast service and you could hear me.
Now on the aluminum pots and pans and stuff,
Yes,
they don't really make a lot of aluminum pots and pans anymore.
that's correct.
There's one industry that they do, backpacking.
Oh, I never thought about that. You're
Aluminum
right. Yes.
is the cheap alternative that they sell over titanium.
Yes, camping gear. Yeah.
So you can get an all aluminum pot and pan set for, super light backpacking
Uh-huh.
for roughly half the price of what the titanium alternative is at any store from just about any brand. Always go titanium though.
Yes, please
much,
don't
much,
use the
much
aluminum.
better.
Yes, please, 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 please. Garrett's right. Never thought about that.
And unlike aluminum, the titanium doesn't scratch very easily whatsoever.
Ah,
So
there you
it's
go.
also not as bad when you're using, still shouldn't, but using a metal utensil in a titanium pan, still not as bad, but go for plastic.
Good point. Yes, plastic would be a better utensil. Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
When cooking certain foods, is there a healthy alternative to nonstick sprays? Well, just don't use a spray ever.
Yeah, don't use spray ever. Yeah. If you heat the pan up first, like cast iron is really going to be one of your best bets. Cast irons, don't wash them. You wipe them out. You can get a brush and brush them out, but they become naturally nonstick. So cast iron would be a great choice. I have cast iron pots. Glass is very good, but it's going to stick, of course. So if you want to use the oils, the best to cook with would be coconut oil and avocado oil. But if you heat the pan first, it's going to be less likely to have things stick.
What do you think about ceramics?
Ceramics are good if they're made in America. If they're made overseas, many times they have lead in them. So if you're going to do a ceramic, make sure it's an American, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. Like La Creuset or something like that, those should be fine.
Yeah, there's lots of really, really good ceramic lined cast iron.
What else?
Should I replace rice with something healthier?
Yes, absolutely. Quinoa, probably your best choice. Millet is another choice you can do.
Orzo?
Orzo? Orzo is wheat, right?
Is it?
Yeah, I think orzo is wheat. So, wild rice is better because wild rice is actually grass seed. So wild rice would be better than white rice. Now, I like white rice. I'm not going to lie to you. I enjoy white rice. So I eat it very, very rarely. But yeah, replace it with something else. A better choice.
Should I avoid certain canned soups?
Yes. If it says BPA free and organic, you're probably a better choice. But certainly if it's not organic, I can almost bet the ranch on the fact that it probably has BPA in it. So
And that is all for today.
that is easy. Guys, you're awesome. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Make an appointment to come see us. All the supplements are on the website, drjoe.com. Follow us on all platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. And that's what I'm going to ask you to do. Your cover charge for today is follow me on other platforms because we're trying to build our following, and I give you all this information. It's my gift to you. Do me a favor. Do me a solid, as we say in New Jersey. Go to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and just follow us at Dr. Joe Esposito. And that's it. You're done. You've paid your admission for today. I appreciate that. And I will see you guys